Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Water Reclamation Masterclass. I'm very happy that you're here because we're going to talk about some of the challenges that our water delivery systems are facing, and uh, and and how to get clean, life-sustaining water delivered to your family. My intention is to get you protected at this most basic and essential level, starting today. Before we dive in, I'd like to ground us on why we're here. Um, America is already in a water crisis. Most people know that. They know that what's coming out of their taps is not necessarily the cleanest one in the world, but they don't know exactly what that means. And that's what we're here tonight to cover is exactly what's coming out of your tap and what you can do about it. So, who am I? I'm John Campbell. For 40 years, I was an enterprise technologist. 22 of those years were spent at Dell, where I helped design and sell some of the largest enterprise systems in the world. I made enough money that I could retire early. When I retired at 61, I indulged my love of writing. I've now got 10 books in the market, and I was thoroughly enjoying myself. I thought that's what I'd do for the rest of my life until a few years ago. I discovered molecular hydrogen, what scientists are calling the miracle molecule, and it intrigued me. I dove into the research and it became more and more fascinating. I finally went and got certified over at the Molecular Hydrogen Institute by probably the number one researcher for molecular hydrogen in the world, Dr. Tyler LeBaron. In fact, I took not only his level one certification course, it was so good I took his level two certification course, and when level three comes out shortly, I'll be taking that as well. So most people do know that although the water may look clean, it's not necessarily clean. But what does that mean? If you dig into the facts, you're going to find that there's 80,000 chemicals in our environment here in the United States, most of which have never undergone any testing. Um, about 1% of them we know what they will do to us. The rest of them we do not. And of those 80,000 chemicals, the EPA regulates about 90 of the contaminants that show up in our water. 90 of the hundreds or thousands of contaminants that can show up in our water. Because I pay attention to everything water, Google keeps sending me articles having to do with water contamination. These two I just got today, and I thought they were worth sharing. The first one is a large scale laboratory study that was published in the journal Nature Microbiology. They tested 1,076 compounds likely to enter our food and water. And and the testing revealed that these chemicals do more than just contaminate. They suppress, they rewire gut bacteria with consequences for our microbiome balance and our antimicrobial resistance, and that's messing with our immune system is what it comes down to. The second one, a weed killer banned in more than 70 countries that's used on our agricultural produce, is still here in use in the United States. And farmers all over the US are suing the company because they're claiming that they're getting Parkinson's disease at ungodly rates, and they think that it's this particular pesticide doing it. Well, if they're getting it from spraying their crops, we're getting it in our foods as well. So our water system is overburdened, and the CDC tells us why and what the facts are. The truth is that as our population kept growing, as our commercial infrastructure got larger and larger, the pipe systems that took water to these places grew more and more extensive. They were pumping thousands of gallons of water a day through each building, and ultimately that means that the water travels further because of these complex water systems and the large number of pipes and drains and other plumbing fixtures that are needed to support them. Well, the problem with that is that the further it travels, the harder it is to control the quality of the water. We can't get enough disinfectants in there to kill the germs, and so the pipes become coated in something called biofilm. The biofilm germs are in all of our pipes, and even though they are responsible for just a percentage of waterborne diseases, the illnesses that result from the diseases of biofilm are responsible for the majority of disease related waterborne hospitalizations and deaths. So, what are the facts? The companies, the organizations that were created to protect us, the CDC, the WG, the USGS, and WHO, the World Health Organization, report the stats, and they are a little bit scary, more than a little bit scary. Uh, this year, over 7 million Americans are going to get sick from waterborne pathogens. Of those, 120,000 are going to end up in the hospital, and of those, more than 6,600 will die because of a waterborne pathogen this year. Um, as an example, as I've said, only 90 of the chemicals in our environment are actually monitored by the EPA. What about the rest of them? PFAs, for example, are being detected in up to 50% of our water supplies. That means that over 200 million Americans may be exposed to forever chemicals on a daily basis in their water. The EPA has recognized that this is a problem, and they promise to have monitoring in place in our municipal water systems for PFAs by the turn of the decade. In the meantime, you just drink it, you just consume it without any protection at all. And so everything today is more intense and worse than it used to be. It's not just the number of people and the size of the cities, it's all of the pollution that goes along with that and the changing of our environment. The A good example from fires in Hawaii, the levels of benzene were 560 times higher than safe limits in Hawaiians drinking water after the Maui fires. The storms, NOAA tells us they're 10 times more violent than they used to be, and when big storms happen, wastewater plants overflow. And those storms carry the pesticides and the fertilizers and the industrial waste directly into our drinking water sources. What about pipe corrosion? It's just getting worse. The infrastructure is getting older. More than 70% of the pipes in the US are between 40 and 100 years old. And in addition to the biofilm, those pipes, when they corrode, release heavy metals into our water. There's more than 1,000 US cities right now that are exceeding lead action levels. Large cities, in fact, typically employ testing cheats to mask the high lead levels in their water so that they don't have to deal with them. Yeah, but we do. So, droughts, low water levels that concentrate, um, the contaminants and all of the other things that go on. Nothing you can do about them except control the water coming out of your end of the faucet and into your house. And so, how do we get safe water into our bodies? How do we get good water into our bodies? Most of the alternatives that are out there uh, don't do what they say they will, or not as safe as they say they are. Bottled water, for example, it has microplastics in it. Almost every company out there where they've tested for microplastics, they've found them. And they're estimating more than 90% of the companies have those microplastics in their bottled water. Uh, Last testing, they had, I think, 240,000 micro and nanoplastics per liter of bottled water, which was, I mean, that's not something I want to consume. Spring water isn't really much better because the gotcha is that it's not regulated. There's no regulation in this industry, and so um, it's whatever marketing wants to tell you, and the marketing is not the reality. The pitcher of water in your fridge or the fridge filter is creating water that just reduces problems with taste or odor. It doesn't remove heavy metals. It's a cheap filter, and so channeling happens where the water bypasses the carbon entirely. And again, because there's no regulation, the marketing says, "Okay, it's good," but the truth is the contaminants remain. The um, the RO water, reverse osmosis, strips the minerals. The water becomes acidic, hungry water, and it's again nothing that actually contributes to your body. In fact, it can leach the minerals from your body. So, what are the different types of filters out there? The baseline filters, the basic carbon, and what you find in pitchers or fridge filters is taste and odor filters. They get rid of that, but they don't do anything for the heavy metals or the microplastics. And again, they because they are cheap, you tend to get channeling going on where the water goes right through the carbon in a channel, and the protection is not really there. Reverse osmosis, dead water that can actually strip minerals from your body, and acidic at that. Distillers are the same as reverse osmosis. But at the far end of the spectrum, there's something called solid carbon block. It's the gold standard for removing the widest range of contaminants while preserving the beneficial minerals that need to go into your body. It's the filtration method that hospitals and NASA and most high level environments actually use. So the solid carbon block technology that we recommend is in a multi-pure filter. There's good reasons for that. There's still a second half that we're going to talk about next, about how to get water into your system that actually will improve your health. But this takes out all of the negative chemicals, the PFAs, the microplastics, the things that can harm you. And that's the first thing you have to do. You have to get the contaminants out of your water. Multipure's been around for 50 years. They created the active carbon block technology, and they've been refining it ever since. And so they're the best at it. If you look at the chart on the right, they have more NSF certifications than any other filter on the market, and that means they remove more contaminants than anybody else. There's thousands of filters out there, but there's really only one that takes care of pretty much everything that you can deal with, from heavy metals to microplastics to even the viruses and the microbials in your water that can cause problems for your body. So you're beginning to understand the realities of our municipal water systems. I will promise you, it only gets scarier. The more you know, the scarier it is. Filtration is basically protective of your health and your family's health. It's something that absolutely needs to be done. But after that, after you protect yourself from the inadequacies of our municipal water systems, or even well water systems, which have their own issues, there's a second part to our strategy, which is bringing your water to life. So this is where modern science meets nature, and you're going to understand exactly what I mean by that when we get finished with this presentation. This is the most exciting part of it, as far as I'm concerned, because this is all relatively new science. They figured out that molecular hydrogen was not an inert material; that it was a uh, biologically active molecule that can do your body so much good back in 2009, and they've been studying it ever since. And so we're going to talk about that now, as well as the one system that absolutely can get molecular hydrogen into your system each and every day, for for years on end, for decades on end. So, living water or hydrogen rich water has been healing people since long before anyone understood that it was the one part responsible, the one element of these rivers and streams that have become famous over time for having their seemingly miraculous healing properties. That molecular hydrogen is the single reason why these water sources are therapeutic to people. I put a few of them on the right. One in Germany that was a former slate mine, and they were actually um, feeding water to the children, and it was improving the condition of children that had been in the Chernobyl disaster. Um, in Mexico, there's another one where people gather around the spring and consider it a miracle water retreat and absolutely get lots and lots of health benefits out of it because of the molecular hydrogen. Another in Japan that's famed as a therapeutic water source for people that is therapeutic because of the molecular hydrogen. Um, I will say all of these waters from around the globe that have active molecular hydrogen in them, because it occur. I mean, it's the most common molecule in the universe, and it shows up actively in some of the rivers for particular reasons, and it's not spiritual or miraculous. It's just the molecular hydrogen doing people the sort of good that it's always done, and it's actually in your system every day doing you some good. And we'll talk more about that now. So, as I mentioned before, the science of molecular hydrogen is relatively new, and started about 2009. When I first studied it 4 or 5 years ago, it was because my daughter had joined a NAGIC, and she joined it because it was a company with a sterling reputation that had been around for 50 years. It was a high ticket sales item, and it had a long history of making people not only wealthy, but it had a reputation for making people healthy. Um, in fact, the Japanese Ministry of Health had approved these ionizers as medical devices decades earlier, uh, before anybody understood it was the molecular hydrogen that was doing people so much good. They back then they thought it was the structured water, it was the microclustering of the water, maybe even the alkalinity of the water, but no, it was all about the molecular hydrogen. She didn't understand that. And when she joined, she just bought because the product had such a great reputation, and she wanted to be involved in water. Um, the she When she asked me to research it for her, I'm a techie, and I jumped on it. I was happy to help my daughter. I dove into Google Scholar, which is a worldwide research database that doctors and scientists use to share their findings with each other. And I found, maybe 50 studies back then. They were all pretty much lab mice, and and yet the results of those studies were showing significant tumor reductions and cancer cures. In fact, scientists were already calling it the resuscitation molecule because they could see it healing these damaged and diseased cells in mice during their studies. What they were finding at the time was so compelling that I bought a K8 for myself. So I've owned a Kangen K8 for a number of years now, and I've used it steadily. I've lost weight. I've played better golf. I've had clarity uh, for everything that I do. And I'm sorry to say, but I pretty much took that for granted until my daughter came to visit and my next door neighbor decided to buy a machine from her. I decided it was time to update my knowledge base, and you can imagine my surprise when I went back to Google Scholar and found that now there were over 3,000 animal studies and over 300 human studies focused around molecular hydrogen, 99.5 of which were reporting results that had scientists now calling it the miracle molecule. So, why miracle molecule? Well, in the 3,000 plus studies going on all over the world, scientists had been exploring many of the things that molecular hydrogen does for the body. So it started with, reducing tumors and getting rid of cancers. And they went on to find that it helped with everything that was inflammation uh, based, which is, most diseases have some inflammation component to them. It helped with neuromuscular diseases. It helped with skin disorders, cardiovascular diseases. It helped with stroke, big time, and anything neurodegenerative, even radiation effects. Like if you've got cancer and you're taking chemotherapy, you can take molecular hydrogen, reduce the pain and the effects of the chemotherapy on your body. Um, as I continued to explore, I got more and more excited about what I was finding, and I decided to actually go get certified for molecular hydrogen. I went to the Molecular Hydrogen Institute, run by Dr. Tyler LeBaron, which we're going to talk about a little bit more here. That certification uh, has only fired the fuel of my curiosity, or fueled the fire of my curiosity. I'm sorry. And I am now deep into it. I spend hours every day studying molecular hydrogen and what they're finding out. And it's gotten much more exciting since they figured out that it was therapeutic, that it actually could do these miraculous things for your body. They've now started to figure out why it does that, and that's the beginning. That's the going to be the end of the miracle, but it's the beginning of the science of it. So nowadays, I run a Facebook page that's dedicated to simplifying the science that I've found on PubMed and Google Scholar in all of my researches, which are, probably at least half of my day every day is spent researching molecular hydrogen. Wading through the scientific jargon of a single article can take hours because it's so technical. And as a writer, and a former technical writer, I'm very good at simplifying that writing into plain English. Here's an example of one thing that I posted about Alzheimer's. And so Alzheimer's study, there was 5 pages of very in-depth information. What it came down to, though, was could be found in this simple graph. They had mice, and for 7 months they fed them. They were three different control groups, and they fed them different kinds of water. They fed them. They fed the first control group, the non-Alzheimer's control group, regular water. Then there was a group of mice that had Alzheimer's, and they fed them tap water. And then there was a control group that had Alzheimer's, and they fed them hydrogen rich water. Well, 7 months later, they ran them through a maze one more time, and they'd been run through this maze a lot. So the ones that had no Alzheimer's, of course, went straight to the food. They went right to the goodies, no problem at all. The ones that had Alzheimer's and had been fed tap water, well, you can see on the graph, it looks like a child's crayon scrawling. It's Those mice were lost. They were fearful. They know because of the amount of poop that they let out while they were looking for this. They were scared. They were going through this place that they just, even though they've been to it many times, they just had no idea about how to get to the food. And then there was the ones drinking the hydrogen rich water. They had Alzheimer's. You could see where they made one mistake and had to loop back. And other than that, they went right to the water because during that 7 months, the molecular hydrogen had helped the brain recover from Alzheimer's to enough of an extent to make a clear difference in the tests that they were running. If you look at this next article here and you dig into the scientific speak, then you can find that hydrogen is not only valuable for certain diseases, but that it can be used in general for the prevention and treatment of aging related diseases such as neurodegenerative disorders, cardiovascular diseases, pulmonary diseases, diabetes, and cancer. In fact, it just helps mitigate the effects of aging in general. Why is molecular hydrogen so effective for so many things? Well, it's because it is a mechanism that our body's been using. In fact, all of life uses molecular hydrogen to keep our immune systems balanced and therefore healthy, because it's all about the balance, which is immune homeostasis. Immune homeostasis is the balance within the immune system that allows it to effectively fight off pathogens without causing excessive or harmful self damage. It's a dynamic equilibrium that involves both activating immune responses against threats and then suppressing them to prevent damage. So, the very mechanisms that keep your body healthy don't also destroy your body. It is crucial for maintaining your health and preventing disease. So, molecular hydrogen laboratory discoveries, all the discoveries of this new science that has now been replicated in thousands of labs all over the world, is really just mirroring what nature has been using molecular hydrogen for millions of years. They're rediscovering what nature already knows. It's the ability of molecular hydrogen to affect the human body in many complex and powerful ways because of evolution. Molecular hydrogen keeps our immune system strong and balanced when we are young. And when we supplement our aging systems with molecular hydrogen, evolution's already taught our bodies exactly what to do with it. So evolution has been performing its slow but steady magic over the course of millions of years to do a number of things with this simple molecule that even cross the blood brain barrier to for our health. And so it uses it as a selective antioxidant that can target the reactive oxygen species that basically rust your system, because oxygen, while it's necessary for our life, is harmful to our health in that it is a very it'll rust your system. Basically, if you've ever seen an apple set out on the counter after you've cut into it and watched it brown, that's oxygen doing that to the apple. Um, it has anti-inflammatory effects, uh, and they know how it does it. It has support for your mitochondria, which we're going to talk about a little bit more on the next slide, because there's been an incredible discovery around that just recently. It activates the NRF2, which is a key transcription factor that boosts the body's antioxidant defenses and restores balance. And in fact, it affects, I forget, it was like 120 different things in terms of body health, one of the major activation pathways in the body. It also regulates cellular signaling, which allows the cells to communicate effectively with each other, because cell death happens all the time, and it helps handle that and promotes repair. So it balances out what's going on with cellular signaling and keeps it healthy and active in your body. And then, most of all, the intestinal microbiome is the home of your immune system. Your gut is your immune system's home, and it helps, of course, maintain and support your immune system in your gut. So this is maybe my most exciting slide. I don't know, all of these slides are exciting to me, but just last week, and we're at the end of 2024, after a decade of research, they have found exactly how molecular hydrogen works in the body. And they knew it was doing all these incredible things, but they didn't know exactly why. Well, now they do. And it's a mechanistic breakthrough that not since the original publications catalyzed the modern interest in H2 have we had something so important. What it comes down to is the mitochondria which are our body's powerhouses. They regulate cells' lives and the energy they produce. The study showed exactly how H2 helped restore and improve mitochondrial function by stressing the mitochondria in just enough, temporarily, in just enough stress to cause it to work to restore itself, making it stronger, healthier, and more resilient. It's sort of like exercise. It does a temporary stress. When you exercise and it breaks down your muscles, and your muscles grow back stronger. That's exactly what molecular hydrogen is doing for your mitochondria. This is a precise mechanism of exactly how molecular hydrogen works, and it is a critical insight that will help guide the design and interpretation of clinical data protocols, and it'll optimize the therapeutic potential of how we deal with molecular hydrogen for the health of our human body. Look, hydrogen helped kickstart our universe. It's the smallest element in the universe. It's also the most common element. Molecular hydrogen is simply two hydrogen atoms bonded together to form the smallest molecule in the universe. So, why would I call it living water? Well, the bottom line is because it is so small, it escapes into the atmosphere very easily. So, absorbing a therapeutic dose of molecular hydrogen means, at least with our machines, it means pouring a glass and drinking it while the molecular hydrogen is still in the water. And it stays alive in your glass for about an hour. And then the molecular hydrogen escapes and it's gone. So if you want to use one of these machines to absorb molecular hydrogen therapeutically, you basically pour it and drink it. It's living when it comes out of the faucet, and it's not alive for long after that. So there are other ways to take molecular hydrogen than just using an ERW system. Um, you can take pills. My sister started by taking pills because the machines are expensive. She gave up on that and bought a machine because the pills are they've got magnesium in it, so they don't taste good. It's a hassle, and it gets real expensive real fast if you want to take any sort of amount of molecular hydrogen that's really going to do you good, which is taking it several times a day. There's gas, so you can buy a gas machine. It's about drinking the molecular hydrogen water, taking it straight into your immune system in your gut is can be 100 times more efficient than the gas. But if you're dealing with lung issues, it's something you might want to look at. It's better for people in general though, and if you're going to compare, the Kangen K to any other molecular hydrogen generating water system, there's nothing out there that compares. There's a doctor on YouTube that takes all he had 10 or 15 machines, and he took them all apart and said, "You don't want anything but the Kangen." And the reason why he was the big believer in Kangen is because his daughter had been born with her organs on the outside of her body. And even after she spent several months in the hospital, before she ever came home and everything was put back in, and she was able to go home to live a relatively normal life. Well, she kept going back to the hospital because she would dehydrate. And so they were looking for systems that would provide the molecular hydrogen because, being a doctor, he understood what the benefits of that were, and would hydrate her at the same time. And after trying a dozen machines, he came to the Kangen, and it was the first one that kept her out of the hospital. And so he became a big believer, and he took them all apart and looked at the quality of the construction of the different systems out there and said, you don't want anything else but a case. So if you have any question about that, go look up the I forget what his name is, but go look up the videos on YouTube about molecular hydrogen that were created by this doctor who will tell you all about his daughter's journey back to health, and all of the challenges she faced, and the fact that Kangen was the only one that could help. Bottom line, company's been around 50 years. There's other reasons that I'm going to talk about now why it is superior, but as far as I'm concerned, it is the most proven, most efficient, most reliable saturation level molecular hydrogen ERW system on the planet. So let's talk a little bit more about the value of the K8. Um, First of all, it again, it's hydrating you, and you're supposed to be drinking uh, 15 cups if you're a man and about 11 cups of water a day if you're a woman. And that's not easy to do. One of the best things that I've found with my K8 system is that I drink water all the time now, and I that just wasn't a part of my life previously. It's got a very powerful transformer in it that does an excellent job of separating H2 from ordinary H2O. It acts like lightning striking water, and it's 8 platinum plates in it. They're medical grade platinum plates, and a very powerful transformer that will reliably separate the molecular hydrogen from the H2O better than pretty much any other machine out there. Um, and more effective over time. It's more effective and more reliable over time. Your body will take in about 1.6 parts per million at most. That's equivalent to about a 100 milligram dose of vitamin C at any one time. And clinical trials all focus around therapeutic levels of molecular hydrogen, which they found to be between zero point 0.5 parts per million and 1.6 parts per million. The Kangen K actually produces 1.68 parts per million, so it's at saturation levels. Every time you pour a glass, you get a saturation level or a solid dose of molecular hydrogen in your body. So Enagic is the only OEM manufacturer of ERW systems. Everybody else subcontracts out the manufacturing, but Enagic for 50 years has retained complete control of its product quality from build to boxing. I used to work for Dell, and that's exactly what Dell did, and they produced a system that was half the price of IBM's, but just as dependable, and that's what turned Dell into a multi-billion-dollar company. For 50 years, they've been doing this. There's 3 million people that use Enagic systems around the world. And please remember, this is not a simple water filter. It is a medical device approved by the Japanese Ministry of Health that's been used in Japanese hospitals for decades. I watched a video the other day with Dr. LeBaron where he was talking about COVID and how these machines were being used in Chinese hospitals to help fight COVID. In fact, they had a little piece of the video where he showed the patients reporting on the results of having these machines available to them and what it did for their COVID. It's a fascinating video. Bottom line for me, this is for your health. So why would you look at anything other than what has been proven to be the best system out there? So a final note on the Kangen K8, and there's other Kangen systems, but they don't have 8 plates, and so I think most of them have 7 plates. So they produce molecular hydrogen, but not at the levels that you get with the K8. So that's the one that I make sure to recommend to everybody, and that's the one I'm going to recommend to you as well. The Enagic ERW systems are all certified by numerous NSF certifications. The 9001 certification is a general quality management system certification, ensuring consistent quality processes are being used in their manufacturing facilities. The ISO 13485 is for medical device manufacturers, indicating quality in design, production, and distribution. And the ISO 14001 is a commitment to environmental responsibility. I'm going to tell you, most of the systems out there don't have any uh, ISO certifications at all. And on this page, I also show some of the other certifications that these machines have. Again, they are by far the best. And why would you want to use anything less than the best? Because it's for your health. So America's behind the health curve. Most of the things I'm talking to you about today are already well known over in Japan, and that's where these Kangen devices originated. Was in Osaka, and they're still produced in Osaka, Japan. They are again approved back in 1967. The Japanese Ministry of Health approved them as medical devices. That's before they even knew that it was the molecular hydrogen that was the benefit. They just knew that they were healing people, they were working for people, and they got approved as medical devices because they were helping people. Japanese treat things a little bit differently than we do. They go based on what is actually working rather than having to go through a whole lot of processes to get something approved. And yet, Japan is the toughest place in the world to get a medical certification for a device because they have to prove that it works. Um, and so they're using them in Japanese hospitals. The stroke ambulances in Japan are also equipped with molecular hydrogen devices because they've done the studies, and I think your chances of living after a heart attack are 40% greater if you're fed molecular hydrogen in the ambulance instead of oxygen. Um, Most of the people in Japan are using hydrogen therapy regularly as anti-aging treatments because it actually will rejuvenate the cells in your body, and we could talk about the studies that show that the telomeres, which are a key sign of aging, and shorten every time they're replicated. They shorten with the ingestion of molecular hydrogen. They actually start to grow longer again. Just like the mitochondria get younger, a lot of other parts of your body use molecular hydrogen to to help actually reverse aging. And HRW is also used to combat fatigue, and there's a lot of studies with professional athletes about how it helps with your uh, recovery after you've done any sort of exercise. So they're very useful for people that are active. So Dr. LeBaron at the Molecular Hydrogen Institute was my teacher. That's who I got certified by, and he's been studying molecular hydrogen since his college days. He is a PhD scientist. He's focused totally on molecular hydrogen. A lot of people call him a genius, but I like to think of him as a molecular hydrogen optimized human being. If you look down there at the bottom, you'll see him running the Las Vegas Tower-a-thon, and there were about 600 athletes. It's almost 1,500 steps that you're climbing straight up a tower in Las Vegas, and competing against everybody like he did. He was first place, and not only was he first place, but he was about 2 minutes faster than second place, and he cut 23 seconds off of his last year's score, and that's typical of him. He is an athlete, an Olympic quality athlete, and I believe it's because molecular hydrogen has been a part of his life for 15 years now. His phrase that sticks in my mind is he says, "Imagine a future where molecular hydrogen is a cornerstone of healthcare," and I could see that. He thinks in the next 10 years that it will be throughout all of medicine, and everybody will understand what molecular hydrogen does for us.
Here in Tokyo with my friend and someone I respect very much, Tyler, who is the CEO and the founder of the Molecular Hydrogen Institute in Utah. And what's so interesting is I first met Tyler when I was there with Dr. Joe Mercola. And Dr. Mercola was obsessed with the work that you're doing and couldn't wait to introduce you to so many of his friends and different people. And I like to really focus on what Dr. Mercola does because he leads the trend. I mean, he is so passionate and so committed to wherever sort of the new research is really showing us to be focused. And you developed your Molecular Hydrogen Institute many years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, well, first I got involved in hydrogen back in 2009. I was just reading and studying, and I came across an article published in 2007 in Nature Medicine by Dr. Ota, who you just interviewed. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So I looked at all the research, all the studies. There wasn't a lot at that time, maybe 20, 30 articles, but it was very interesting. And then in 2013, I had the opportunity to go to Nagoya, here in Japan, and do an internship and research some of the molecular mechanisms of hydrogen and see with my own eyes that hydrogen gas really is exerting changes on a cellular level. And it was that time that I had the opportunity to meet Professor Ota. Went to his lab, and it was so great. We got there, and he got some wine glasses, and not wine, I don't drink, but he poured hydrogen water, and we sat around talking about this hydrogen molecule as we drank hydrogen water together and enjoyed such a wonderful conversation. And when I returned back home in 2013, I thought, I saw some amazing things. I believe in this research, that this needs to be out to the public. This hydrogen is really something that has the potential to help so many people, and I wanted to educate people. And at the time, nobody knew anything about hydrogen gas being beneficial or therapeutic, only that it was explosive. So I started a website. At the time, it was just a website called Molecular Hydrogen Institute, and I started educating people about the benefits of hydrogen. I put the studies on there. I wrote some articles. Then, as things started going forward, I started getting invited to go to speak at conferences, first in Beijing at a biomedical hydrogen symposium there, and things just kind of started escalating. And so now I formed the organization as a science-based nonprofit, and we're just focused on advancing the education, the research, and awareness. So I'm able to speak at various medical conferences throughout the U.S., go throughout Asia and Europe and speak at various conferences and collaborate with some of the best and top minds in the field of molecular hydrogen research. And I'm just very grateful to be part of this. It's so exciting.
Well, I'm so grateful, and we all are, for the work that you're doing, the pursuit that you personally have. I mean, for the past 9 years, right? From 2009, we're at the end of 2000.
Yeah, nearly 10 years now, right?
Nearly 10 years you've dedicated your life to it. What are the most interesting key benefits you've seen really in the past 6 months around hydrogen that you think will transform the way that people, our health in general? Like, what are the top keys?
Good question. I'd want to say that some of these new publications coming out on hydrogen being good for things like dementia, cognitive impairments, it's very powerful. I mean, there's really no drugs that have been shown to be effective for things like Alzheimer's disease. And so when we are seeing these clinical studies, not just animal studies, which were very impressive themselves, but actual human clinical studies showing that hydrogen gas can not only slow down or prevent the decline in cognitive impairments, but actually lead to improvements, to me that's amazing. And similar with stroke, cerebral infarction, what's going on with the post-cardiac arrest syndrome. The Japanese government in 2016, back in November, approved the inhalation of hydrogen gas in advanced medicine so they could do a major clinical trial with over 360 patients in 20 different hospitals so they could determine the effects and benefits of hydrogen gas for this post-cardiac arrest syndrome. So I think this is really setting major changes in the medical community. But then just for people like you and me that are healthy, that want to live a better life, the research that's coming out on just exercise performance, whether it be improved recovery and endurance and exercise capacity. These are small things but are significant, especially for those who are really trying to get the cutting edge, right? Get some more energy, get yet another bout of exercise in to push themselves harder and to recover faster. And then also the fact that hydrogen, just drinking hydrogen water, everyone drinks water, right? So you can just drink hydrogen water. And in one of the studies with healthy patients, well, so they're not patients, healthy people, right? Healthy subjects, they drank the water and they had improvements in mood and anxiety and decreased stress, which to me is so great. We published a study in Scientific Reports showing that hydrogen could increase the resilience to acute and chronic stress in mice, and we exposed them to forced swimming and changing their make so they can't sleep at all, and changing their food, like a whole bunch of things to cause all this stress. And those that drank hydrogen water, well, they fared a lot better, had a lot more resilience to the stress reduction, and it can end up leading to rejuvenation of the mitochondria and activation of PGC1 alpha, UPRMT, the unfolded protein response of the mitochondria. There's so many benefits. Hydrogen, when everything's normal, but you need a little bit of additional hormetic stress, hydrogen alone can initially mildly induce reverse electron transport, increase superoxide production, followed by the reversal of that, but yet you're left with the changes in gene expression, such as PGC1 alpha, activation of NRF2, and all those other genes that lead to improved mitochondrial biogenesis and mitochondrial function. And now your mitochondria is working the correct way. So that's I think molecular hydrogen really is an interesting solution. This is not, a strong drug
for reductive stress. For reductive stress.
Yeah,
and thank you for explaining that.
Both reductive and oxidative stress.
Yeah, which means it's adaptogenic. It modulates whatever's dysfunctional and it makes it better, with virtually no side effects, none, zero that we know of. It's like the ultimate supplement.
Well, it's almost really the side effects are potentially what mediate beneficial effects, right? Because a side effect is that it can, in some conditions, induce reverse electron transport or increase superoxide production. But it's only transient. And those transient increases end up activating our heat shock proteins and a lot of other benefits, NRF2 that I mentioned, and so on. So it's almost like, yes, there are toxic effects, but they're so mild and transient that those toxic effects end up being partly how the beneficial effects are mediated, the principle of hormesis. A leader, and that has been shown to have therapeutic effects in the body.
Such as?
Okay, so first, the primary benefits. It has unique and selective antioxidant effects. Okay, and it also has unique effects on the regulating the inflammatory pathways, as well as improving resilience to stress and improving the mitochondria. So we can talk about each one of those, but I think we need to understand a little bit about our statement about the antioxidant effects, because it is a buzzword like we kind of talked about.
Yeah. And I also like that you said regulating the anti-inflammatory pathways, because that's the key word right there. Everybody's like, well, I want anti-inflammatory and I want antioxidants and everything. But I think you've had some really great points when I follow you on Instagram, obviously talk to you, and you really break down why it's all about a balance of these things in the right way. And I thought it was very interesting how molecular hydrogen can facilitate that in a balanced way, where it's not overdoing and it's not underdoing. It's kind of helping these things find their happy medium.
So he says it far better than I can. And if this has been interesting to you, my first suggestion is that you get your water evaluated, send a photo of your faucet to the person who invited you, and they'll tell you exactly how to hook up your MultiPure system. And then you don't have to start out with filtration and living water, but start somewhere. And if you get your pre-filtration system, keep thinking about putting living water into your life, because it will help you to live longer and healthier. The common saying among the Japanese scientists who are studying molecular hydrogen is, you need oxygen to live, but you need molecular hydrogen to live well. And that's not one person saying, that's a consensus amongst all of the scientists. If you get interested in buying the more expensive product, the K8, most people can qualify even with zero down. The finance terms from Enagic are extremely friendly. And I would encourage you to explore those and see if there isn't a way to get molecular hydrogen into your life. And if for some reason you feel called to the mission that so many of us are passionate about, to help people understand what's going on with their water and to help get molecular hydrogen into their lives, just message us and we'll talk to you about how to become a water ambassador and what's involved with the company. I will say that my daughter's mentor is responsible for about 60% of the sales in Enagic. He's made, I believe, over 1,000 millionaires. It is an extremely lucrative thing to do to to sell the Enagic systems, and I highly encourage you to check that out if you have any interest in it at all. So let me wrap up with a link to my Facebook page, and let me mention again that I put uh, uh, simplified information about complex molecular hydrogen studies up on that site regularly. You'll find most of Dr. LeBaron's videos on there because he's still the best of the best as far as I'm concerned. And if you want to, for any reason, you're welcome to email me. I'm always happy to help with questions. And I'm at miraclemoleculementor@gmail.com. Thank you very much for spending time with me today and or tonight, and I hope that this has been interesting.